In this episode of the Villains Corner, we will be going over the Void Lords, definitely the most powerful villains in Warcraft lore. The Void Lords themselves are heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraftian horror, and I think explaining what this is will give you a better idea about the Void Lords as we continue on in this video. In regular horror, there's a bad guy that can be defeated, as vampires are vulnerable to the sunlight, werewolves can be stopped with silver bullets, etc., etc. What sets Lovecraftian horror in its own genre is that the bad guys cannot possibly be defeated, because they're so ridiculously overpowered. The Outer Gods in the Cthulhu mythos exist outside their universe, and when people accidentally catch a glimpse of the Outer Gods' true forms, they just straight up go insane. Lovecraftian horror isn't about defeating a villain, it's about hoping the villain pretends you don't exist and leaves you alone, because there's nothing you can do about it if they decide to destroy your planet. Thankfully, the Void Lords in World of Warcraft are not that powerful, but they're pretty close. Warcraft Void Lords are more like pure forces of corruption, and not really individual beings who exist outside the universe. It's just a void energies that has a hard time taking shape in the universe, and does so in the form of old gods and minor void entities. The Void Lords themselves are aware that the Titans are the strongest beings in the universe, and attempted at one point to try to corrupt fully aware Titans, and failed miserably. And since they completely gave up on trying to corrupt adult Titans, they thought they could try their hand at trying to find a sleeping Titan inside of a random planet. So they sent small fragments of themselves to countless random planets all throughout the universe in an attempt to corrupt them, and hopefully by chance find a sleeping Titan planet. All with the ultimate goal of corrupting a Titan and turning them into a Void Titan, which would easily make it the strongest thing in the universe. And one day, while a Titan named Sargeras was fighting some demons, he discovered that some of them were using void powers. So he decided to investigate the source of this power and discovered the Void Lord's existence, and also discovered that they were intelligent beings who were far more powerful than any demon. He really didn't know much more about them though, as he didn't really have a way to get any more information about them, so he just kind of ignored them for the time being and went to continue fighting demons in the universe, which were a much more pressing issue as they caused random destruction everywhere they went. Eventually in his travels, Sargeras discovered a world with a sleeping Titan inside of it that was completely controlled by a couple of old gods, and also discovered that some dreadlords were on the planet and working for those old gods. So, being very familiar with all of the types of demons, he decided to capture these dreadlords and question them, asking them why they were working for the old gods. And these dreadlords eventually gave Sargeras all the information he needed to know about the Void Lords. Basically, who they are and what their ultimate goal was, i.e. take control of a Titan to create a void-powered Titan who would be the strongest thing in the universe, and consume all the matter and energy in the universe to eventually bring everything under the Void Lord's control. And with what Sargeras saw on this planet, combined with what the Dreadlords had told him, was enough to make Sargeras afraid for the first time in his life. Afraid of what the Void Lords were capable of. So Sargeras cut the planet in half with a sword, and destroyed the sleeping Titan along with all of the old gods on the planet, and then went back to his Titan pantheon to tell them what happened. Sargeras had come up with an ingenious plan to counter this new Void Lord threat he just discovered, and his plan was to destroy all life on every single planet in order to allow the universe to start over, as there was no way to tell how many planets had already been corrupted. Ideally, all under the watchful eye of the Titans, of course, so that there would be no void or corruption at all. And Sargeras was very saddened to hear that his fellow Pantheon members were being very unreasonable about his proposed strategy, so he left the meeting in a huff in order to put his plan into work anyway, if the other Titans were going to be so irrational about his plan. So he went off to create the Burning Legion. And Sargeras was kind of right in a way, as a few of the Void Lord's tiny little minions crashed into a planet that would eventually be known as Azeroth, and they were very happy to find that there was a Titan soul inside this planet. And not only was there a Titan soul, but was one strong enough to rival Sargeras. So they hit the jackpot. So they went to corrupting the world, but had to deal with the elementals who ruled the planet's surface first, and pretty easily defeated the 4 elemental lords and turned them into their minions. Eventually, the Titans found this planet, saw that its surface was corrupted by the old gods, which they were able to recognize from Sargeras' story, and wanted to see if they could help as kind of a, see, we can uncorrupt Titan souls type thing. So they created some Titan Watchers to go down to the planet in order to defeat the old gods. And then eventually, after a long battle, one of the Titans just decided to rip one of the old gods out of the planet, but then found out the old gods already infused themselves with the planet itself. So killing the old gods would probably destroy the planet. So they changed their strategy to just imprison them instead, and then left the Titan Watchers there to watch over those prisons. Then the Titans left the planet on its own, as it was no longer in danger of being turned into a Void Titan. And then they had another meeting with Sargeras, presumably many years later. There's no real time frame on this, where Sargeras eventually killed all the other Titans and stored their souls in Argus, because Sargeras thought eventually they would probably come to see reason, you know? And then through a series of events that I cover in a lot more detail in the Yogg-Saron and Cthulhu Villains Corner videos, the old gods were able to weaken their prisons in order to attempt an escape, but then they got pushed back down anyway, with the most recent attempt being an escape being done by N'Zoth. Now, the Void Lords were able to create a creature in the physical universe called Dementius, the All-Devouring. This void creature has unknown origins and eventually started attacking the Ethereal's homeworld planet of Karesh. Xalatath, the Shadow Priest artifact weapon, talks about Dementius and describes his creation as a manifestation of fragments, shadows, the faintest of echoes of the Void Lords. And since the homeworld of the Ethereals did not have a Titan inside of it, Dementius took great efforts to keep his form in the physical world and had to constantly devour matter and energy in order to grow in strength. And it actually took him many years to devour the entire home planet. And it's because the Ethereals fought back that something happened during the battle which destroyed their physical bodies, and is the reason they look the way they do, as beings of pure energy surrounded in wrappings. And it's also the reason a lot of Ethereals are tied directly to the Void, because a lot of them got corrupted in the process of this whole world devouring thing. And eventually Dementius went to a second planet, and it was in its attempts of devouring this other planet that he was eventually destroyed by a Naru named Turi, who destroyed itself in the process, and the fragments of its body were eventually used to create the Holy Priest artifact weapon from Legion. Considering Dementius was only the faintest of echoes version of a Void Lord, and he was able to destroy a planet, that should give you an indication of how powerful the Void Lords could be, if they actually gained control of a Titan host. Now, since Void Lords rule over void energies, it's speculated there could be things known as Light Lords, who rule over light energy, and that possibly Naru are just the agents of the Light Lords, as they've been shown to corrupt people as well, as seen with the Mag'har Orc allied race scenario, or during the rejection of the gift cinematic with Illidan.
Do you not wish to reclaim what was lost, to be whole again? My child, you've given so much for so little. Your true potential, your redemption, lies before you. Let go of your shattered form and embrace the light's power. The prophecy must be fulfilled. Your old life has passed. The light will forge you a new one.
It is not yours to take.
The light will heal your scars.
I am my scars.
The light is your destiny.
My destiny is my own.
It's also theorized that Elune could be one of these Light Lords, as Velen theorized that Elune could have just been a Naru, as its energies were very similar to one. But this pissed off the Night Elf, so he never brought it up again. But Elune has been shown to have more power than the average Naru, especially since it does everything without having to come down to Azeroth or be physically present. Khadgar even theorizes that it was Elune who created the prime Naru, Zera, when he was thinking of ways to use the Tears of Elune in order to unlock the information stored within Zera's core. Of course, all of this Light Lord stuff is pure speculation, so I think I'll just end it there. So, as far as we know, that's everything we know about the Void Lords so far, as kind of the whole point of them is to not know much about them, similar to Lovecraftian horror. So, I hope I gave you a good enough explanation anyway, and I'd highly suggest watching the Villains Corner videos on the specific old gods to learn even more about them, or how they go about corrupting planets anyway. And as always, these videos are only possible thanks to the drawings done by Rachel. If you like her drawings, I suggest you follow her on Twitter or her other websites, and she even has commissions opens for drawing characters in the style of Villains Corner drawings. All of that will be linked in the video description.